Attention, attention please. As we get ready to start our journey into the mine, remember, for your safety, you must remain seated at all times. Keep your hands and feet inside the train, and do not raise your hands above the top of your head. All aboard the Salt Mine Express. In the wall to your right is a bulkhead. A bulkhead is what the miners call a wall that was used to direct airflow. This bulkhead is made of 1.5 inch thick tongue and groove planks supported by 6 inch by 6 inch timbers and sealed with black tar paper on the backside to keep air from that part of the mine from coming into this side. It was slowly being crushed by the roof, but as you can see, it finally came down. On the platform are a couple of two-thumbed gloves. In the 1940s, when this area was being mined, everyone conserved materials for the war effort. The miners would wear the gloves until they wore out the palms. Then they would wear them on the opposite hands, using the second set of thumbs until they wore out the backs of the gloves. Now, stories have been told that Mr. Carey, the owner of the Carey salt mine, was always after the miners to pick up their trash and not contaminate the salt. Well, apparently a miner rolled up these gloves and stuffed them in a blasting hole, because that's where we found them 60 years later when we opened this part of the museum. Now, if you look closely at the salt wall to the right, it appears there's another glove stuffed in a blasting hole. As you look to your left, you'll see a rare sight, what the miners call a roof fall. The pieces on the floor used to be the roof, but over a number of years, the salt started sagging away from the compacted mud layer above it and eventually fell. Now, even though only a few rooms ever develop a roof sag, everywhere in the mine that people will walk, drive, or ride, we monitor the roof, and sags are removed when necessary. Can you imagine how it must have sounded when this roof fell? From 1923 to 1983, the miners used a rail system to transport salt from the mine face to the salt skip, where it was hoisted topside. Then, in 1983, they switched to a conveyor belt system. On the left is a car that was used to haul salt, and railroad tracks that were abandoned when mining left this area in the 1950s. The miners would use the same rails and ties over and over, since bringing more down the skip was both time-consuming and costly. Our train crew ripped up and hauled back abandoned rails and ties from the mine that were used for our train track. Almost 5,000 feet of rail for the track you're riding on. At the next curve, we'll pass by other original cars used with the rail system, including a hand-wheel-operated rail bending car. Everything that comes down in the mine stays in the mine. And if you look at the lit area, you'll see that this is even true of mining trash. Now we know this area was mined in the 1940s and used as a break area in the 1950s. And we found many name brand products in this trash pile from that time period, and some of which are still around today. There are a couple of things that we noticed here. One, there's a calendar from 1953 on the floor by the rocks on the left. And two, when we found it over by the pillar, the gray trash can, well, it was empty. We consider all these items to be artifacts, which only proves one person's trash is another's treasure. In case you were wondering, trash isn't the only thing miners left underground. And apparently this area was used as a restroom. Oh, no fancy porta pots here. And they weren't very careful with the toilet paper either. And this is one reason we say, don't lick the salt. As we round the curve up ahead, two spotlights will come on. The first on the left will highlight a stack of empty cardboard dynamite boxes. Then on the right, you'll see a pillar that is scaling or spalling. This means that the salt is breaking away from the wall. And like roof sags and floor heaves, this is a natural occurrence in a salt mine. And as your ride continues, keep in mind, we've tried to leave the mine just as it was years ago. Now, when we get to the station, please remain seated when we stop and do not get off the train until instructed to do so.